Hi everyone, this is James. Welcome to episode 5 of Oh My Malware. Slightly more delayed than I'd hoped for various reasons, including technical failures, which is why you might hear and see the quality of this video a bit less than usual, but we'll resolve that by the next episode. Anyway, let's carry on for today. If you're new to this channel, this is a place where we grab real malware samples and we run them just as if users would have run them within an organization or perhaps on their personal devices after receiving the payload in any way, shape, or form that you can think of. This is not a reverse engineering channel, nor do we do anything like static analysis. The whole goal behind what we do here is to determine what coverage we would have gotten if we were running the Elastic Security with the Elastic Defend integration for Elastic Agent, which is something included by default whenever you're using Elastic Security. Today, we're going to be looking at our first Linux payload. This is BPFDoor, and one of the stealthiest backdoors I've ever seen. Really, really clever techniques. Very unusual, but very clever. It was discovered, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2021 by PwC. Last year, as Elastic, we published quite a few blog posts about it and released various different tools to be able to detect it, to extract various information from it, and it's even a BPFDoor client. So we're going to be taking a look at that today. And because, again, this is not a reverse engineering channel, what I always like to do is include a very detailed post that goes into more sort of like reverse engineering style analysis. And what I do is I add these posts to our Discord channel for the specific episode. So if you haven't joined my Discord server yet for this, for Oh My Malware, please go ahead and do so if you'd like to discuss the episodes or ask any questions you may have. I always show the virus total page for the payload in question that we'll be looking at today. And this is, again, always linked from the ohmymalware.com website for the specific episode. So you can see here, this is the sample that we'll be running today. Excellent. So let's go ahead and kick it off. So we're just in Kibana here, so you can see there's no alerts yet for today. And we're going to go ahead and start. What I like to do always for these episodes is we run the sample twice simultaneously, one on a machine with the Elastic Defend integration for Elastic Agent running everything in what we call detection only mode, meaning we'll passively alert and observe all the behavior, but we won't try and stop anything. And the second machine is the complete opposite, where everything is in prevention mode, meaning if there's anything we can prevent from happening in the first place, we'll go ahead and do that. So let's kick this off. Let's extract the payload and run it on each of the machines. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's unzip the file. Let's change the permission to be able to execute it. And we run it. So that's the detection machine. Let's go ahead and do the same on the prevention machine. In fact, because this is in prevention mode, I think the file is already gone after I unzipped it. Yeah, so there's no permission to change or nothing to run, which is a really good sign. It was immediately detected and quarantined as soon as it was unzipped, which is exactly what you'd want to happen in a production context. Okay, so we've ran or attempted to run the payload on each of the machines. What I typically like to do for these episodes is I'll pause the recording here for about 10 minutes or so, just to give the payload enough time to do whatever it needs to do, and also for any alerts which need to, or I should say, any detection rules which need to run on their schedule within Elastic Security, we give them time to do that. So I'm going to pause the recording here for about 10 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. It's been about a couple of minutes. It hasn't been the full 10 minutes. It's been like 5 minutes maybe. But I'm pretty confident what had to trigger triggered. So as usual, what I'll do is we'll start off with the detection machine first. So let me filter out the prevention host. Okay. Right, so we have a handful of alerts. We have a few malware detection alerts, and then we have two SIM alerts here. Seems like it, yep. What I'll do is let me change this to event rendered view, just because I like doing that when there's a couple of duplicate alerts here. So let's start off from the first one. This is probably because we unzipped it. Yeah, so you can see here, first thing that happened is we identified that specific payload as malware right from the start. So on Linux specifically, the way we do this within Elastic is we use Yara signatures for this, and we'll actually show you the signature name that was detected. So if you had, and you can see it right here, rule name, Linux Trojan, BPFDoor. So if I was investigating this straight away, I know that this binary is a BPFDoor payload, which is great. So as soon as we unzipped it, we detected that, which is very encouraging. However, because this was detection, we let it run. We can start to see what this malware intended to do. I'm going to do something different for today because within Linux, we have a really, really cool way of investigating alerts, or I should say activity. We have what we call the session viewer, which is awesome. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to open up this session viewer. This is going to literally play out what the malware did as if we were at the terminal with the attacker. If you haven't seen this, it's phenomenal. And again, available to anyone with Elastic Security. So you can see here within our session, obviously everything that's happening before is me logging in, changing to root, whatever. And then we have from the first alert, the unzip action. We can also see the output if we wanted to, which is cool. We also capture the output. So we know what happened, but I unzipped it. And you can see then here that unzip. So how cool is that, right? That's pretty awesome. Okay, so then, I did not mean to do that. Let me just open this again. So we have the malware alert here, and then you can see we changed the permissions, exactly what we did. And then we had another alert for when we ran the malware, right? So you can see here I executed it and another detection alert. Now what's interesting is we can now see what that malware tried to do. And this is part of what it does. So you can see we ran the binary and then it tries to do a couple of different things. So first, it removes the initial file. I should say it copies, removes, it runs it out of shared memory here, this dev shm. So it does quite a bit, changes permissions again, runs with the init flag. Yeah, so you can see it's doing quite a bit there. And then you have all the relevant child processes. So you can see the deletion, you can see the copy, you can see the changing permission. There was another malware alert here for the copy, which is pretty nice. And then you can see two alerts here. One, another malware alert, but then we can see an alert for binary executed from the shared memory directory. So this is the first indication of a non-malware alert, right? So let's take a look at it. So you can see this triggered because that particular process ran out of dev shm, which is a shared memory directory. This is not typical for a process to run out of the shared memory directory, right? It's very unusual. Also makes it ephemeral. So once this machine is rebooted, that no longer runs. So that's pretty interesting to note that it was run out of there. Again, this payload, remember the whole point is it creates a backdoor. So it achieves ultimate stealth by doing these things. It's really cool. So it's run out of there first and foremost, which is a detection we had, apart from all the other malware detections. Then there was another one here. So one thing that the process did is it also created this PID file, this held run d.pid, which is again unusual because of one, the name is not very usual, but also just its specific behavior. There's an investigation guide in particular for this, so you can see it's explaining exactly what we're talking about here. PID files are used very regularly, but it's just because of the you can see it's being run out of var run or the run directory. Attackers can masquerade malware payload, stage data for exfiltration, so on and so forth. So a lot of detail there within that investigation guide as well. So it created this PID file in the var run or the run directory here. You may see it slightly differently just if you're using certain versions of Ubuntu like I am. Run is symlinked from var run. That's why you might see run versus var run. So that's from a detection standpoint. So we detected, first of all, the binary straight away. It did quite a bit in terms of, you can see here, just all the processes it tried to, well, not processes, all the activity that ran right after the payload was run, which gives away a lot. So we know now what this tried to do. And then because we picked up certain other behaviors like this binary executed from shared memory directory and abnormal process ID or log file, we were able to find quite a bit. I'm going to dive a bit deeper on this though, because this is really interesting. So if you haven't realized what happened here when this particular payload, it's number one, you can see there's a fork here, right? So when a process is forked, it can be like very, similar to like process spoofing as well. So because it forks it, so that's also unusual, and particularly because it's tried to remove itself as well. So once it's forked itself and it removed the initial binary, it might be running as something else, right? In fact, what BPFDoor does here is it forks itself with a different process name. So if you had to try and look for this particular process on the machine, you actually wouldn't see it. So like if we had to do, let's go into the detection machine, just do an htop here. And we tried to search for that. Let's search for, what is it? KDM, TMP, flush. You actually won't see that. And that's BPFDoor being really, really stealthy. In fact, we can try and find out what name it gave itself. So after it invoked this fork, let's just check the PID here. That's not where I wanted to go. Yeah, so there's a PID now of 998. So we can actually look at what is in PID 998. And you can actually see it's this down here, PID 998, dbus daemon dash system. That's it being really, really sneaky and stealthy. So in fact, this is actually that BPFDoor daemon running. It just gives a fake name. So it tries to hide itself. I'm telling you, like this, the amount of stealth in this is really well thought out. Now, one thing to note, as Elastic, we actually capture the running processes. So if we had to look, and I don't think I've ever done this in one of the episodes, but if we had to use our response console for Elastic Defend, we can actually list the processes. So you wouldn't have to have access to the machine to identify this, right? That's the whole point of a endpoint detection and response system, is to be able to run this without actually being able to actually having to need to shell into it. But this behavior is very, very, very sneaky. I just wanted to show you like all the ways you have to identify this if you ever spot a BPFDoor, the RS signature triggering for BPFDoor, like what you could look for as well. So this may take a while to run depending on how many processes there are. Let's just leave it run for a few seconds. Here we go. So if we had to just to look here at some of the processes, look at what PID 998 is labeled as with Elastic Defend, right? It's the original process name, but we've put in that it's been deleted. This is actually what you'd see in the proc directory, right? If you had to query for processes there. But at least if you have this available to you, if you have Elastic Defend on your Linux machines, and you saw something like this, KDM TMP flush with deleted, you know that this is a successful running execution of BPFDoor, apart from everything else. So I just wanted to highlight it. that you're able to look at this level of detail for the for that specific PID. But it's very, very clever because then what it does, typically, for a backdoor, it would need to listen on a specific port, right? Which is a behavior as someone in a security operations center, something you can probably easily identify. But again, if we go on the machine and we did something like else of minus I, for example, we're not going to see that for port 998, right? So, you're not going to see that something's listening, which potentially shouldn't have. Even if we did which if I have netstat installed on this. Yeah, let's install it just really quick for this exercise, right? It's so intriguing to me the how this was done. It's pretty fascinating. So I just want to show you some as much detail as possible. So we did now netstat minus PAN. Let's do pipe more. So you can see we don't see that process listening, right? So as a backdoor, we don't see any of that. What we typically expect to see on a traditional backdoor, which is really, really interesting. So how does this actually work? Well, it uses a legitimate port, so from a legitimate process, right? So think, maybe you have Nginx or even SSHD or whatever, something that's legitimately listening on the internet. Obviously, that would be the main goal, right? To be reachable from anywhere. And then it uses that BPF filter to filter for the right packet that the attacker is sending. So it uses something called a magic packet and even needs to specify a password, where if the packet matches, then and only then will it invoke the process to start listening based on the IP address which sent the right packet. So it's really, really fascinating. So it will drop all the other traffic based on that BPF filter and only start open up that socket once it receives that magic packet. So just a bit of background into BPFDoor because again, it's so stealthy. These alerts might not give everything away that it's doing. Within this article, we go into a lot of detail. We even give again config extractors and everything like that, which is pretty cool. So if someone did successfully execute, so I should say, like right now, this payload is running on this machine. So if someone sends the right magic packet, they can run reverse shells or whatever they need to do because this backdoor is active. So, I'm going to go ahead and actually kill that process just in case. I don't want this backdoor to be active, even though I shut down these machines after every episode. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So let me just grab this entity ID here and we'll kill that process. Cool. So you've seen some insight as well into using the response console, which I haven't done on an episode yet, but it's just really interesting to be able to see how that process is observed with the tools you have available to you. I think it's really important that you get as much visibility as possible. Okay, so that's going to run. We can actually leave it run in the background. We don't have to stay here with the screen. So to recap, just what we've seen. So we observed the malware on initial entry straight away. As it was unzipped. We saw it being observed on execution and wherever else it was copied around and executed. So you can see all the way down, every time there was an interaction with the malware payload itself, we picked that up, which is great. So as a BPFDoor payload itself, it was picked up even after it tried to do whatever it tried to do. There were also two other alerts triggered, and they were picked up as SIM detections. One of them was that binary being executed from the shared memory directory, which is not normal, and also the PID file being created by the backdoor. So that's from a detection standpoint. And again, I'm going to highlight how effective this session viewer was to our investigation. Right, this is really, really an amazing way to be able to view this data. Cool. Okay, so let's close that, and now we'll flip over to the prevention. And this is going to take us a few, like a minute maybe over, because we know exactly what happens here. But in this case, basically, as soon as we tried to unzip the file, it was picked up and quarantined. So nothing else, which is great, which is exactly what you want to happen within a production context, right? If something is determined to be malicious, we pick it up and stop it from running. Perfect. So that concludes today's episode. Bit different, right? So it was our first Linux payload. We also interacted a bit with the response console. I apologize if the quality is not to its usual standards. Hopefully, by next episode, I will have my new machine and I'll be able to use my previous setup. As always, please reach out on Discord if you have any questions. And yeah, if you do and are liking this content, it would really help me if you subscribed to the respective YouTube channel. It would really help get this awareness to whoever wants to be able to view such episodes in the series, right? So thank you all again. It's been great. Until next time.